In 10 minutes, they're fast buddies. So if you had to say somebody's controlling somebody, I would say the lab is controlling the shepherd.
But most people would look at it and say, oh, the shepherd is definitely dominant. Look at how submissive the lab is acting.
Exactly, and look how, you know, rigid. Now, when I take such a dog like that into training, for protection training or any training, we look at the dominance and say, oops, that's unsureness, let's soften it. Let's
you mean the shepherd?
Yeah, the shepherd would get more and more relaxed through the training. The training wouldn't be to max. If I was protection training that dog, I wouldn't maximize that intensity. I would relax it, and then you'll see the dog getting maxed. You know a good example between pack instincts and supple team energy is, I like to use the metaphor of the boxers. The boxers get in the middle of the ring and they glower at each other and they're staring at each other. Well, that's pack instinct.
Right.
But then you see, as soon as they go back to their corner, they go back to moving.
Right.
Because that's debilitating. That paralysis is debilitating.
Right.
When as soon as they get back in their corner, they're being loosey-goosey and they're jumping and shadow boxing because they want to stay limber.
Sort of like how the shepherd was shaking it off
Exactly.
when they first met, and then
Right.
when the boxers are psyching each other out, that's sort of like the pack
Yes.
stuff, giving like really psyching
Right.
each other up, getting each other a vibe so they can go out and like punch and really expend a lot of energy. And right.
Yeah, but if they stayed in that paralysis, when you get hit, you get hurt,
Right,
you
right.
have no stamina. So the reason they're trying to stay loosey-goosey is because when your muscles are warm, it doesn't hurt. You're fast, you have more power. So the team energy is when things are flowing. Pack instinct is when things are stuck. So the real purpose of the pack, like I said, if you look at the immediate moment energy theory, you can see all points of view. The real purpose of the pack is to infuse everybody with tension and stress.
Right.
And then they get all bollocksed up, and the only way it can come out is at a common object of attraction, and that would be the moose. That's the compulsion to go after a prey they cannot physically handle.
So the problem when people raise their dogs according to the pack hierarchy, when they do any of the Caesar Milan or the monks of New Skeet, is when if they're just compounding the stress and
Yes.
and the tension, that causes aggression or fear.
Right. They're driving the stress deeper and deeper. The deeper you drive it, the more concentrated it gets. The more concentrated it gets, the more explosive when it finally comes out. So in the short term, it can look tremendously successful. But if you look at it a little more closely, you'll see that the dogs are getting deeper in conflict. And if you were to apply that paradigm to high levels of training, such as police dog work or bird dog work, anything that's really requires the dog to be free and operating in real time, being flexible to changing circumstances, those dogs fall apart. That's why I abandoned the dominance model, because they fell apart under high stress, under high change, high excitement, and when things are all new. They did not know how to respond.
And even when you are not doing the dominance hierarchy, but you don't understand what all that pack instinct is for, we've talked a lot about positive dog training and how that actually adds stress to the circuit.
Yeah.
Just as much as...
Right. If you don't know that the purpose of the group isn't companionship, it's to work together as a team to overcome a high degree of resistance.
Just like the wolf has to kill a musk oxen, like a huge amount of resistance.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's why, through that same paradigm, is why the golden retriever may never go after the cars or chase the mailman, but he'll play with a ball all day long.
Right.
Because it's got this charge that needs to really get expended through an incredible amount of output. So if you don't give that output, it just builds up and up and up. And even if you're being positive and you're not providing purpose, which is team-directed behaviors that overcome challenges, the dog is turning that into stress, just like the cell phone. You put it in that charger, well, that is going to build up a charge, and it needs to come out. Sooner or later, that battery will explode.
And now we're even seeing golden retrievers actually chasing the mailman and chasing cars and having a lot of bad behavior, and that is probably due to the pack mentality, but also to the positive dog training.
It's also to the positive because it's all in denial of canine purpose. The purpose of the canine is to hunt as a team and overcome a challenge. So it's not to be, so you know what happened, I noticed it in the 60s, is you start to see breeders saying we breed for good temperament. And what they meant was friendly. So they were breeding friendly to friendly. And what they were actually breeding was more and more hyper-nervousness. And now we got to the point where golden retrievers are so friendly, they're basically a vibrating nerve ending.
Right.
And it just charges up, and then boom, it comes out.
And the purpose of a golden retriever is to go out and to chase and to jump in a freezing cold pond over and over and over again and grab that duck and bring it back, and that's their imprint. So that's why they go nuts over the ball, right?
Exactly.
And people aren't understanding what their real function is.
Yeah, so what's happened now in the Goldens, if you look at them now, they have slavish devotion to owner. And they're obsessed, it's like OCD. Whereas if you go back to the 60s, they were really rugged breed, very rugged. They loved the cold water, they loved doing the retrieving all day long, but they were steady under a 12-gauge shotgun. And now I hear of Goldens that are jumping out of apartments because the wind whistling through the elevator shaft.
They're so nervous.
Yeah, they're so nervous, and they're light-colored and finer boned. So all the breeds, once they started selecting for friendliness, they bred the heart, which is purpose, out of the breed, and that's the root of all evil.
And we're going off on a little bit of a tangent, but people don't get dogs for a purpose anymore, and so they don't. If they get a golden retriever, they don't understand.
The bond flows from the purpose, and the metaphor I like to use for that is a team.
Right.
A team that is organized around a purpose, that forms a lifelong bond between the teammates, because they accomplish, even if they have a losing season, but they play really great and they've worked together, they did the best they could, and they overcome a purpose, they will have a bond. Whereas a losing team that doesn't have that ethic, I like to say, has a lot of personality. So related to the phenomenon of getting away from purpose is a fixation on personality. So people say, oh, my dog has this great personality, they breed for personality, the breeders do. They call that temperament, and it's not temperament. Temperament is about turning energy into stress for the purpose of teamwork.
Of a goal.
Yeah, and that's, your dog has that mechanism in there, and you need to know how to access it and tap into it and work with it. And the companionship flows from that dynamic. So it's a wonderful side effect, but it's a byproduct. It's not a goal in and of itself.
So for the average golden retriever owner or Labrador retriever owner, they don't have a 12-gauge shotgun and they don't shoot ducks anymore.
Right.
What can they do to create that bond? What can be the common purpose?
I think we should make that a focus of a show. How do you play moose with your dog? How to be the moose for your dog? But that's what they got to do. They got to learn how to be the moose to their dog, not the slavish object of attraction, and how to recognize temperament and to encourage temperament and work with temperament as opposed to feeding personality. Another word I like to say about personality is it's actually a defensive response to stress. It's a very good coping mechanism. So you find yourself in a cocktail party for the first 10 minutes, and it's nice to have personality.
Right.
You can get through those first 10 minutes. Right. Or you're stuck in an elevator and you got to make constrained, forced conversation. Right. Well, personality is really adaptive for those first 5-10 minutes or 2 minutes in the elevator. But it's not, you don't feel good when you're in your personality. It's not your true character.
You're right.
Your core.
Yeah.
So what I want to encourage is people to look for the core and to work with the core. And at the moment, people are thinking that the pack instincts are the core, and that's not it. So I like to give the example that a prison community is a true pack instinct, is a true dominant hierarchy. It's not a team. And we don't want to live in that way.
Well, since we're almost at the end, I thought we would end with a quote from David Meach, who studied the wolves in Ellesmere Island, St. Ellesmere Island up in the Arctic, and spent a lot of time with those wolves, and he's sort of he's the premier wolf biologist, right?
They call him the top dog of wolf biologists.
But I found an interesting thing he had to say, and I'll read it to you. It says, the concept, nature, and importance of the dominance hierarchy or pecking order itself in many species are in dispute. Similarly,